Astropanochos.
All right, astro-goofballs, want to know how to really make those strain wave gears sing? Well, strap in, because we're going deep on guiding those tricky little gears. We're skipping the fluff today and jumping right into the good stuff, a paper by Kok Chen. It gets right to the point, how to actually guide them effectively. So first things first, those periodic errors. Strain wave gears, they're great, right? Compact, high torque. But man, those error patterns, they can be a real headache. Not your typical periodic errors either. And the old guiding methods, well, they just don't cut it here. See, Chen points out that the usual 1 pulse per exposure guiding, it falls apart with these gears. It's because those errors, they change so fast, you're always playing catch-up. So what's the trick? Short exposures. Yeah, I know, shorter exposures, less signal, noisy guide star measurements. But hear me out. Chen's got this idea, right? You use multiple guide stars, measure them over these super short exposures, and you take the mean centroid. Think of it like, instead of one shaky measurement, you're averaging a bunch of them. So you get a much better idea of where the error is actually going. It's like having, multiple spotters. It minimizes the seeing effects, too. Okay, but then there's harmonic distortion, right? It's like the periodic error goes into overdrive. Makes those slopes even crazier, harder to guide. But again, Chen's paper says shorter exposures are your friend, those steep slopes. Over short exposures, you're only taking these tiny steps along the slope. So your guiding can keep up. All right, so we're all about those short exposures. But there's one more thing we got to nail down. Limiting those guide pulses, because guiding's all about correcting for errors. But sometimes those errors, they're not even from your mount. It could be the atmosphere, turbulence or a gust of wind, even this noise into your camera. And if your guiding system is always overcorrecting for those phantom errors, well, it can make things worse, right? So how do you stop it from freaking out? You set some boundaries. Chen says, calculate that worst case slope for your mount's periodic error. And then you set a maximum duration for those guide pulses. So your system is only correcting for the real deal, the mount's errors, not overreacting to every little jiggle. This might be sounding a little complicated, I know. And yeah, it is, kind of. But the cool part is, Chen didn't just talk theory. He actually built a mount simulator to test all this out. It's like a virtual playground for different guiding techniques. No clear skies needed. Pretty neat, huh? So, what's the bottom line for all us astro-goofballs wrestling with these strain wave gear quirks? Well, even with all these fancy tricks, getting a perfectly round star centroid with a strain wave gear and the current autoguiding algorithms, just not going to happen. Sorry. But don't worry, you don't need perfection for amazing images. The goal is to shrink that error down, make it smaller than your camera can even see. It's like, hiding a speck of dust on a huge painting. No one would ever notice. And how do we pull off that magic trick? Well, that's what we'll be tackling in the next part of our deep dive. We're going to look at some practical tips from folks like ZWO and Pegasus Astro and see what those seasoned astrophotographers have figured out in the field. So stick around. All right, so we've laid down the groundwork with Chen's paper, all that theory. But now let's see what's happening out in the wild, right, where the rubber meets the road. Those folks actually using these mounts under the stars. Lucky for us, we've got manufacturers like ZWO and Pegasus Astro. They've been busy figuring things out, coming up with solutions. And of course, the astrophotography community, those diehards on cloudy nights, are always pushing the limits. And one thing's become pretty clear from all those field reports. Guiding strain wave gears, it takes a different approach. It's not just about tweaking settings. It's about understanding how these mounts work. Their personality, I guess you could say. Now, ZWO, they make the AM5 mount. All right. They've been really great about making strain wave gears more accessible, easier to understand. They even give you a full periodic error test report with each AM5. You can even find it online. Just scan the QR code. Talk about transparency. They're not hiding anything. They're giving you all the info you need to really get the most out of your mount. And remember now we talked about those unpredictable periodic errors? Well, ZWO figured out that with strain wave gears, those PEs, they're not as periodic as with worm gears. Every gear has its own unique error fingerprint. So they test the full periodic error of each mount. Gives you a much more complete picture. Now, Pegasus Astro, they use strain wave gears in their NMAX 101 mount. And they've been focusing on those advanced guiding algorithms to wrangle those crazy PEs. They're big fans of predictive PPAC, in PhD2. It's a smarter algorithm, basically. It adapts to that variable periodic error. It's like your guide system is learning, anticipating the mount's every move. Corrects for those errors before they even have a chance to get up your images. Okay, now I know some of you astro-goofballs are thinking, wait, what about peak? Can't we just bake that into the mount's firmware and call it a day? And it's a good question. There's definitely been talk on cloudy nights about adding a peak function right into the mount to correct for some of those errors. But even with PPEC, or even if they do add PEG, fine-tuning your guiding settings is still super important. You got to find that sweet spot for those settings. You know, the guiding exposure, minimum move, all that stuff. It's like tuning a race car, right? Got to judge everything just right to get that perfect balance of speed and control. Takes some experimentation, but man, it's worth it. So after all that, what's the takeaway for guiding strain wave gears? It's definitely trickier than those traditional worm gear mounts. But with the right approach, you can absolutely get great results. Short exposures, multi-star guiding, those advanced algorithms like PPEC, and a little bit of fine-tuning, of course. And remember, it's not about perfection. It's about making those errors so tiny, they basically disappear in your images. And with all the info we've covered and the tools out there, you're totally equipped to handle the challenge. Now let's talk about another big thing with these strain wave gear mounts, stability. They're known for being lightweight, portable, which is awesome if you like to travel, take your astrophotography on the road. But can a lighter system really handle those long exposures without, turning your images into a blurry mess? Let's find out. Okay, so stability. Big question with these strain wave mounts, right? I mean, they're so light, so portable, which is awesome. But can they really hold their own when you're doing, serious long exposure imaging? Well, let's see what the experts have to say. The ZWO, with their AM5, they're not shying away from the stability question at all. They've actually got this custom high-torque strain wave gear. It can handle, get this, 13 kilograms of payload. And no counterweights. Yeah, no counterweights. Think about that for a second, especially if you're out in the field. It's a game changer for portability. But how do they manage that, all that stability, without the extra weight? Well, the AM5, it's designed for stability from the ground up. It's not just about using lightweight materials. It's about how they put it all together, engineering a really solid platform for your gear. And then they've got this weight sling you can attach, so you can add extra weight if you need it, batteries, even rocks, whatever you've got. Just a simple way to boost that stability when you need it. Now, I know if you're used to those big, heavy traditional mounts, you might be raising an eyebrow right now. But ZWO, they're all about balance, weight, precision, and practicality. And from what I'm hearing, they've really nailed it with the AM5. So after all this deep diving, what's the final word on strain wave gear mounts? Well, they're powerful, that's for sure. They're portable, precise, but they definitely require a different approach, especially when it comes to guiding. The big takeaway, you got to adapt. Shorter exposures, multi-star guiding, those advanced algorithms like PPEC, they're your best friends here. And remember, a perfectly round star. Well, it might be a bit of a unicorn with these mounts, but you can get those errors so small, they practically vanish in your final image. And that's what matters, right? Look, any new tech, there's going to be a training curve. Strain wave gears, they're no different. But with all the info we've covered, the tips from the manufacturers, the experiences of other astrophotographers, you've got everything you need to master these mounts. So go out there, experiment. Don't be afraid to push the limits and see what these amazing mounts can do. Clear skies, everyone.